Going on, guys? Sensible Prepper Live. Welcome. Hope you guys had a good week, and we are ready to talk about some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Got Robbie Wheaton with us, and that makes it even crazier. And Robbie from Wheaton Arms, and also has the Robbie Wheaton YouTube channel. You can go down below, and there's a link. He has been a gunsmith for over
Almost 30 years.
Almost 30 years. Yeah. He's an old man, but yeah. So, yeah, and he does all the upgrades for the Dagger Falmouth State Armory and does a lot of really armor cuts, you name it, slide cuts, ported barrels, whatever. Robbie's the man, and that's at Wheaton Arms. And former Marine, well, always a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine.
But Boy Scouts for big kids.
That's right. Boy Scouts for big kids. And we really appreciate Robbie for being here. And also Sarah Max over on the computer. She is monitoring questions. If you have questions at any time, you can go ahead and leave those questions. And then when we take a break, she'll come. We'll try to answer them. So today we're going to talk about something, vehicle survival setup. I did a video on the vehicle survival kit. We're going to look at that as well, and just did a standard video. And there was a lot of interest in that video. So I thought we'd expand that out with the live, give you guys something a little bit different today. But before we get started, we want to give a big thank you to Exotac. Exotac, made down in Winder, Georgia. They make the best fire stools, They make great fire stools, but they also make great fire tools and some of the best, if not the best on the market. And I keep these in my survival kits. And guys, you need a survival kit. It boils your water, cooks your food, keeps you warm, gives you light, and can keep predators at bay. It's just essential. It's primal. Fire is essential. And you get 20% off using Sootch 20 with the link down below in the description. And we really appreciate Exotac. Okay, with all that being said, one thing about it, guys, we spend a lot of time in our vehicles. A lot of time. And, we do different things. Of course, obviously, we're running to the store, we're going on trips, but something can happen at any moment.
Well, you're more than likely to have an incident or an accident in a vehicle where you're going to need some of these tools or all of these tools then a lot of times than you are at home. Or even if it's not something that you're directly involved in, you come across an accident or an incident where someone needs help, and you have the tools that you need on hand to be able to help that person.
That's a great point, because, accidents happen, cars. One thing that I always kind of mention is it's not necessarily SHTF. It could be a personal SHTF. It could be something that only affects you, that only happens to you. But guys, it's still SHTF.
Yep.
And so these are items that help mitigate your personal SHTF. So what we're going to look at is we're going to go through some things that we're going to go from what's, to me, most likely that you're going to need to having those items that if you don't have them, you're going to be in dire straits in certain situations. So first thing, and I think everyone really should, they don't always, we have some form of it, but just having an emergency kit, a kit for your vehicle. I like to use these MTM case guard boxes because they stack well. They're cool. They're sealed, and it makes it really nice to have the items. But this is just your basic repair kit.
Yep.
Now, Robbie's going to have some differences that he might have in his. And that's what makes it cool.
That's right. It's not a all-inclusive, one-size-fits-all kit. The things that you might have in your kit are going to be a lot of times specific to your vehicle. Things that are going to be able to help you out of a situation that you could be involved with your vehicle specifically. If you drive an EV, I don't know why, but I mean, hey, some of us do, but if you,
golf cart,
right. Two-wheel drive vehicle, four-wheel drive vehicle, there's a lot of things in this kit that's going to be specific to each type of individual vehicle.
And that's true. You have a four-wheel drive vehicle, there are going to be items because sometimes you take more chances and do things.
Right.
But, one thing is just, and this is something that I just threw in there, it's a vest, the bright orange vest. If you're on the side of the road, and I'll tell you, the other week I was changing a tire for my wife on the side of the road, and there was it was 4 lanes, But for some reason, nobody could just move over, even though the traffic wasn't that busy. They want to get right on you, and you see this stuff happening with accidents and things like that. Now, this can be controversial because some people don't like to use Fix-A-Flat. I like it. It can cause problems if you get plugs in your tires. I think it can be a problem. But if you're just on the side of the road, it's an easy fix.
It's a lot of times, especially for females, for women, something like Fix-A-Flat is a whole lot easier for them than trying to change a tire on the side of the road. Getting the jack out, getting the tire out, breaking the lug nuts loose can be difficult for even for men. Yeah. Exactly. So having some Fix-A-Flat that can get you to a service station or repair station, I think for me is very, very important. One thing that you do want to keep in mind with Fix-A-Flat is it can expire. So it's not something that you buy, you put in your vehicle and, expect it 10 years later to still be serviceable. It's probably not. So one thing to keep in mind with it, that you do want to rotate it out every year or so, maybe every couple of years at the most, and keep fresh Fix-A-Flat in your vehicle just in case.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than it going, and there's no, like taking a spray paint can and going.
Well, and that's the thing, this stuff, it's a one and done deal too. So, you're not going to use it, have half a can left and put it back and say, okay, well, I'll save it in case I need it again. If you use it, throw it away and get a new can. Because the pressure and it will leak down after you use it.
It's worth it. It's worth it. And even if it ruins your tire, if you're a lady and you're on the side of the road and you may not have help, or a guy, you may not want to do that. Okay. And then I have just some basic tools, some screwdrivers. Maybe I want to, tighten up my battery cable or whatever. The sad thing is I did a lot of work on my cars, but then when all the computers and all the different, fuel injection and all that stuff came along, it's very difficult unless you know what you're doing. But there are certain things you can do.
Yeah, there's a couple of little things that you may or may not have in your kit that I always keep in mind. One is an adjustable wrench. An adjustable wrench is one of those things that, you might not want to carry a full socket set and wrench set in your vehicle, but an adjustable wrench will get you by in a pinch.
That's right.
And then also a pair of channel locks. Is another tool that I think is really handy to have in your bag.
Yeah, if your hose comes loose or something, those clamps, it makes it a lot easier.
That was going to be one of the other things that I talked about are hose clamps. Yeah. I keep an assortment of hose clamps in my kit because you have a radiator line slip off or you have a clamp break. It can get you back in the service with your vehicle so you can get on down the road and get it repaired properly.
Right. Gloves, and I have some insect repellent. Because if I'm on the side of the road and I'm getting eaten by mosquitoes, but this is not necessarily mandatory.
It's not, but we live in the South, so I almost say that it is mandatory.
Yeah, it probably is. It'll just eat you alive. Have some tow cables. And again, especially if you're in four-wheel drive, you have a winch or whatever, but not even that. And then, of course, some more tow cables with hooks.
Good jerk strap.
One thing that I love in all my bags is heavy meal trash bags. Yep. Contractors bags. And one of the reasons why it's in here is, let's say I'm changing a tire or I've got to get up under, something's under my car or whatever. I can lay this down on the ground, especially if it's raining, whatever.
But here's the thing. If you have a flat tire, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be raining.
Of course it is.
It's just, the law of physics just work that way,
And I even have a flashlight in here. And so, just some basic, and guys, we know about a lot of this stuff. Even have a replacement for my tow hitch. But these things.
One thing that you do have in there that you didn't talk about are zip ties.
Yeah, I did. They're falling out.
Zip ties are one of those things that, I think everybody should have in their vehicle. They're 1,000,001 uses for them. You can do all kinds of things with zip ties. That's something that I definitely recommend keeping in your survival kit for your vehicle.
How many times have you been in somebody else's car, and especially if they've had the car for a while, and there's something wrong with it?
Yeah.
Almost everybody, there's something they're like, oh yeah, by the way, that doesn't work that way.
And here's the thing with the exorbitant cost of new automobiles today, a lot of us are driving used cars. We're not going out and buying a new car because they're so expensive. So having some basic tools and basic things in your vehicle to be able to repair it if something happens on the side of the road, I think is even more important than it is with a new vehicle.
That's true. And that's like me. We like our used cars.
Yep, absolutely.
Because they're paid off. Okay, so this is just basic. I mean, guys, you should have something in your vehicle, at least. If you don't have anything else here, you need to have at least some tools. What I love about this is that the case is hard. It can pack easy. I can put things on top of it. I'm not worried about it, and I can pull it out easily. And it is easy to find. It's right there. Open it up, and so that's just, to me, that's a basic thing, and you should really have that. Okay, now we're going to move on. And one of the things, and this is a little bit over the top. So you could have a standard trauma kit and cover a lot of this. But one of the things about a trauma kit, and a lot of times people don't really think about it, but if you have an accident, especially something that could sever a limb or have a lot of injuries,
Right.
Having a tourniquet, having chest seals, having whatever. I mean, because car accidents can be horrific. And so this may be what saves your life. And so having some kind of, this is actually from AMP3. This is my good friend Dave over USN ER doc, medical doctor. In fact, he was an emergency room doctor in Portland. And he put together this kit. It's a clinic in a roll. It's got everything. Now, typically, this goes whenever we're going on vacation. We've got a group of people. This will help a lot of different people. There's even splints in here. There's eye wash. There's a lot of things. So this is going to be a little bit over the top when it comes to your medical. But honestly, just having a basic trauma kit, which we're going to look at that as well, or a boo-boo kit. You may need some Band-Aids and some antibiotic ointment, things like that. But you can come up on a wreck in a hurry, or you can be in a wreck, or somebody in your car. Maybe it's a family member. And thank God you had a trauma kit. You were able to administer something before EMS got there. I was watching something the other day where this truck just, and it just took the whole cab off, killed the guy. One of the guys lived, but he was all injured, and people jumped out to help. Having these tools are going to be very important.
Well, how many times have you been driving around town, driving down the road, and you come up on an accident that's just happened? The police aren't there yet. EMS is not there yet. Fire is not there yet. You're literally the first person that comes upon this wreck. And you get out, you check on the people, you make sure they're okay, you call 911, you get people en route. But if someone's injured, especially severely injured, having the tools and the knowledge to be able to use them, you could save somebody's life really easily.
Right. We came upon a wreck a while back, and the guy had flipped his car. He was in the middle of a median. It was late at night. It was like 12 at night. And in fact, I had my kids with me. It was just us and the kids. And we got out, and the guy was upside down in his seatbelt. He was passed out. He'd probably been drunk. He's probably been drinking. But I could start to smell gasoline. And so we tried the doors. We couldn't get the doors open. A lot of other people kind of stopped to help. But, one of the things, in fact, I like to keep it in this emergency kit is a pry bar. Now, I don't know if I'd have been able to get the door open. Might have could have busted the window out or whatever, but I like to have a pry bar in case something gets stuck and I can use that pry bar. I do keep one in my get home bag, and we'll talk about that. But I like to have a good sturdy pry bar with a little hook. They're very inexpensive, and you can get them at Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever. Yep. But that is something to use some leverage.
And one other thing that you really need to keep in your vehicle that 9 times out of 10 is not going to fit in your emergency car kit or even in your survival box is a fire extinguisher.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot of times that you can come upon a vehicle fire, and I have multiple times over the years came upon a vehicle that was on fire, either that was involved in an accident or for some reason the fuel line came off and the vehicle just caught on fire on the side of the road. So having a fire extinguisher, even if you're not able to put the fire out, but to knock the fire back and slow it down enough to where you can get people out of a vehicle.
We had a friend of ours, truck just burned it. He barely got his pack out of the car before that thing went up. A truck. It was in Dallas, truck on fire, just a pickup truck sitting on the side of the road. It was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, 18-wheeler on fire. I mean, we've come across a lot of that. And a good fire extinguisher is definitely going to be a big plus.
Mhm.
And you can, I mean, there's so many, and that's another one you have to keep track of,
Right.
because they can expire as well.
Yeah, get the one that has the gauge on it so you can actually monitor it and see that it has pressure in the bottle.
Yeah.
As long as the arrow is pointed in the green area, you're good. When it gets down in the red, toss it and get a new one.
Now, one thing about having a trauma kit is Stop the Bleed class or a trauma class that's really worth the money. And you can, it's not black magic.
No,
like we've talked
that's
about.
right.
You know, sometimes you think, oh, I don't know if I'd even be able to use it. It's not that difficult if you know a few things, and it's not a lot. So having a trauma kit, vital. And two, if you're a concealed carry holder or you're out and about, a lot of times there are small trauma kits that you can actually place on your body, and you can save lives with that, and maybe even your own.
Mm-hmm.
So first off is your emergency kit. And one thing I want to go back to with this, make sure that your jack and you have the tools you need to change a tire.
That's right.
Make sure that your spare is not flat. We've had that happen before. Sarah Mack one time had a flat on the side of the road, and she got her. In fact, somebody stopped to help her, and when they got out, they went to change it, and the spare was flat.
Mm-hmm.
And so, then Dad had to come around. But making sure that those things are right, and making sure that your car's maintained.
That's right.
Making sure you have oil in your car and those things. There's some people that are very meticulous about that, and there are a lot of people that just aren't. So if you're not, keep track of those really important things. So emergency car kit, trauma kit, and we're going to go to some questions here in just a second. But again, get yourself some training. Make sure that you know what you're doing. But yeah, I would add a few other items, not just necessarily just dire trauma, but some things that could get you through. You cut your finger, you don't want to bleed all over the steering wheel, and you're looking for something to wrap it up. It just makes life a little bit better. Okay, so let's go to a few questions.
Dave Ma asks, can I convert my gas fireplace into a wood burning one pretty easily in an SHTF?
It depends on your chimney. The chimney has to be lined with fire bricks. And if your chimney is not lined, then no, it's probably going to be pretty expensive to convert it. If your chimney is lined, then yes, you can convert it relatively easily. And that's something you can get a chimney sweep to come out and inspect your chimney and give you advice on whether it's serviceable and usable as a wood burning fireplace or not.
And yeah, if you have, even if you have a wood fire chimney, you need to have that inspected.
That's right.
My parents, we had to take the chimney, but they couldn't repair it.
Mm-hmm.
It would have cost a lot of money. And so that was one of the issues. But yes, you want to make sure, because, I have a burn barrel, and I just put stuff in there that I want to burn, sticks, leaves, things like that. And if there is anything laying against that barrel, just laying against it, it will catch on fire.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a chimney that's going up, a lot of times the heat generated can be really great. So don't take that for granted that it's just a chimney.
Yeah. Or you get gaps in your fire bricks where sparks can get through the fire brick and into the walls, into your house, and start a fire. That's why it's really important to have your chimney inspected annually.
Unknown Prepper asks, does anyone know where you can buy a complete Berkey water filter system? There are several websites that say Berkey, but which one is really Berkey?
Well, most of the ones that say Berkey, like the Berkey guy, he's a buddy of mine. He's a great guy. He actually has a website, and he sells Berkeys, and predominantly Berkeys. And I think it is the BerkeyGuy.com. Great guy. But most of them, that are selling the Berkeys, as long as, I don't know. I haven't really searched out. I just buy things from the Berkey guy. The one problem with Berkey right now is the filters.
Yeah.
They're just hard to get. In fact, we were on the phone with them this past week, and trying to get some different things and looking for filters. And she said, well, we don't have the Berkey filters, but we do have these ceramic filters. And the ceramic filters are great, but they just filter out. It's not really what the charcoal Berkey filter does. Not quite. It's better, and it makes your water taste better, and it does take out some. So at this point right now, the Berkey filters are a bottleneck. a lot of people, I think, are starting to look into water purification. Now, you've just done something.
We did. We just swapped over because of the filter issue and not being able to get them for the Berkeys. We ended up swapping over to a reverse osmosis system for all of our drinking water at home, and mounts under your sink. It's got some pre-filters and everything that filter. It does have your charcoal activated filters that go in there as well. But so it filters the water, and then it does its whole reverse osmosis system thing. But I've been really pleased with it. Really pleased.
Yeah, I think the one thing is, and we talked about this last week, is that it does take out a lot of the minerals out of the water, and so it really becomes more of a distilled water. So you have to weigh that out as far as what you're getting out of your water. We've been doing a lot of research. We've had a lot of questions because Berkey went through kind of some things about their testing, and there was a lot of questions. But we've been using Berkey. I've used Berkey sport bottles. In fact, I had a really good friend of mine just went to Africa with just one of the Berkey sport bottles and went all through Africa and using that, and it was great.
Yep.
So it's there has been a little bit of a controversy with Berkey, but I feel like that. It's just, I think they use some silver in their filters, which is great. It's a natural antibiotic. And I think there was some questions about that, but we use colloidal silver all the time.
Sean Hank 1234 says, if I'm stuck in a snowstorm in my car, what would you recommend about cooking inside the vehicle?
That's going to be tough because you don't want any kind of carbon monoxide buildup. And it's according, I guess, to what you're using. There was one accident that happened a couple of years ago during a snowstorm. It was a blizzard, and this guy was in his Jeep with his family, and they ended up running off the road in the blizzard. Nobody could see him. There wasn't a lot of traffic, and thank God he had a kit.
Mm-hmm.
If he hadn't had a kit, they would have all died. And he was able to take the spare tire off, and in the center of the wheel was able to build a fire. Now, that wasn't a cooking fire, but they actually kept the door open so the fire would be able to, carbon monoxide wouldn't, or the smoke wouldn't get into the car, but yet that warmth really helped them.
Yeah.
And so, cooking in your car, of course, maybe like some little camp stove, some of the little butane. I don't know how much carbon monoxide they put off, but I think in any enclosed area that you're going to be with producing some kind of fuel, you need to be cognizant that you need to have some kind of ventilation.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry so much about actually cooking food as I would with having food that I could eat, whether it's some emergency rations, survival food, MREs, even canned goods that you have in your vehicle. So you have something to eat. Any of those you can eat right out of the package without warming it or cooking it, as long as it's not dehydrated or freeze dried. So, like I said, having some stuff in there that you can eat right out of the package to me would be more important than warming it up.
And like MREs, they have the
heater
self-heater, the heaters. So that might actually work, something like that. And we like to have lifeboat food, the lifeboat bars, because it's like 3,000 calories in a bar like this, and they last 5 years, and we like to keep them in the bags. And it actually keeps you from getting thirsty. So if I'm going to cook, I'd probably be outside of the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Just my opinion.
Fine Ass Amy Fresh says, hi guys, what's your favorite prep you didn't initially know that you'd need?
Wow, now that's a big loaded question. Of course, you think about the food, the water, the medical, things like that. I think the one thing really that was a big one for me is my get home bag. I had a bug out bag. I didn't necessarily keep it in my car. I just had this bug out bag I kept at the house. And over time, I started thinking I really need you could put a bug out bag in your vehicle, but having a get home bag that if I am somewhere and I need to get home, I have survival items in there that gives me a better chance to get home. And so after that period, we took our whole family and started putting the bug out or get home bags. But the other thing is because, I was just buying items that were survival items. And I think the one thing too, that really turned me around was the rule of threes, and 3 minutes without air, 3 hours that you can live. 3 minutes without air. You can live 3 hours in really extreme, harsh conditions. You can live 3 days without water. You can live 3 weeks without food. and then medical and self-defense flow all the way through it. And it helped me to set up my bag very with a structure instead of just piling a bunch of stuff in there. And we do that with all of our preps. If you're not careful, because that takes care of your ultimate just bare survival needs. All the other stuff's fluff in a sense, but that'll get you at least there.
100% agree. That I think the rule of threes to me really helped me as far as having stuff. You know, I've always been very well-rounded as far as my preps go, but as far as focusing my preps, my get home bag or whatever, the rule of threes has been the one thing that's really helped me to focus my preps.
Right. It was like an epiphany almost, because before I'd pack my bag and I think, okay, what about this? What about that? But when I did that rule of threes, I thought, okay, this covers this, this covers this. And there's some things like cordage and stuff like that. Your fire kit, which is going to be actually part of your just to live in harsh conditions. Some of them are redundant. So that was a big one. So, okay. All right, let's move on. We'll come back to some questions in a minute, because now we're going to get into something a little more in depth. These are basic. These are normal. I did a video just recently, and you can, it's on my standard videos on Sensible Prepper. But again, there were so many views on it that I thought this warrants a relook. And why? Why do we have a survival box? Now we have our get home bag, and we're going to talk about that in a second. And I think get home bags again are important. Everyone in our family, I have a get home bag in their vehicle they keep there. But this can seem at first redundant. Why do I need a survival box? Why do I need the items that are in here? And really, there's a lot of items that are here that are in my get home bag.
Yep.
So if you have a get home bag, you could probably do okay, but this just takes it to another level to just be more prepared. But let me tell you, this is probably the key element. And Robbie and I were talking about this before, is what happens if you have your get home bag in your car, but there's 2 of you, there's 3 of you, there's a family. You're going to have one get home bag. Typically, we don't move our get home bags around to different vehicles. And so this just gives you a very compact way to keep those supplies. One thing that, and this was Robbie, actually, we added this to it. We've added a couple of things since that video. So this isn't just a rehash, but this having a bag, having some kind of small bag that you could strap this stuff on and carry it if you needed to.
That's right. Your survival box can absolutely turn into another get home bag for someone else that's in the vehicle. It's got a lot of the stuff that we have in the get home bag is also in the survival box, and it gives you the ability to have a second survival box for someone else that's riding with you in your vehicle.
Right. And there goes my water. But the bag, that was something I think is an excellent idea. And for this, it's just a dry sack, one of those rubberized dry sacks. It has straps. You want to make sure it has straps. And this is one, actually it was from Roaring Fire Gear. It's just a rubberized coated. This is great. It's just a great little bag to have. I have some dry sacks without straps, and they just don't cut it because I need that. But one thing is a rain poncho or a rain jacket, and really having something like that in here would be good. I do have we have the heavy meal trash bag,
right?
And that can be used as a poncho. But having a good rain jacket, and I'm really picky. I bought a North Face, and it's got the white lining inside. It's just a normal rain jacket. And these aren't really that cheap. But I needed a rain jacket one time, and I was at Cabela's, I think, or something. And I just thought, I'm going to buy this because it looks nice, and I'll keep it. Well, after I started wearing it, I bought another one. Then I bought another one because sometimes I need one in my go bag. I need one in my – to me, when I find something that just really trips my trigger, and my phone is like going off. It's driving me crazy. But when I have a rain jacket, this is important because if you get soaked to the bone, even in the middle of summer, at night, you can really get cold. And you can lose body heat. So, and then, of course, wet wipes, that's kind of self-explanatory. You can wipe your face, you can wipe your other end. I keep some glasses in here because, you need to protect your eyes. And then, I have a fire kit. One thing that's very important is a trauma kit. A second, it's redundant, but it's in here but this is in case something happens. And this is a really cool trauma kit. I got this actually at Palmetto State Armory. It's a
It's one of the North American rescue kits.
Yeah, and it's in a Pelican case. This is expensive. But it's really nice because it's solid. I have trauma kits that we take to the range. They're the soft packs. They're great. And then, of course, gloves. Cordage is vital. Now, let me say one other thing about this survival box. I have had to use some of these items at times when I was going on a trip.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a video about this, about actually having an SHTF. It was a personal SHTF. And I had my cordage, which I ended up strapping down a light bar. Zip ties also are excellent for this as well. And I think this is fire cord. It'll actually be a fire starter. I have a small fire kit. I have my Exotac tools. Guys, having fire kit, it's just vital. But having my redundant tools, not just a Bic lighter, not just some matches, because those things can go out, but have a number of tools in here that, according to the situation, it's funny. I've been to some survival classes, and inevitably there's some tool that I've been using that for some reason just won't cut it. And I'm able to have something else.
That's right.
To do that.
Well, it's nice if you're building a fire, you've got a big lighter. It's easy.
Yeah, it's the easiest.
But if the big lighter doesn't work, you need something else, whether it's matches or flint and steel. You need something else.
You've had big lighters to go out?
Oh, yeah. Once or twice.
I've had 1,000 to go out. They're great when they're great. And when they're not, they're not. Okay, a little SOS space bivvy keeps you warm. It's part of that rule of threes. You got 3 hours in harsh conditions. We've got a bandana to put around our face. There is a bazillion uses for bandanas. I did a video about this. You can wet it and put it around your neck. You can put it over your head. You can use this as a hobo sack on a stick. You can put things in it. You can carry things. You can wrap up your arm.
You could almost do a 10 uses for a bandana video every week and never run out of ideas. There's so many things.
We're the bandana channel. Yeah. And then, of course, now water's big. You live 3 days without water. Water's big. This is one of the Grail systems. It's a press system. I love this.
Yep.
I've got the Katadyn Pros and the other MSRs, and I've got some other different systems. The Berkey Sport Bottle, but I like this system, and it gives me a container, and I can carry my water with me. So it's a big one. And I have some tent stakes. And I'll tell you guys, I've gotten to where I put tent stakes in almost everything. Because if I have a tarp, which we do, and I have cordage, I have shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Shelter from the wind, shelter from the rain, shelter from the snow, whatever it is. And this is one that has the Mylar inside, so it actually will keep you warm as well and can be used in case you go into hypothermia. So love to have a good tarp, but I still have the
heavy metal trash bag.
Heavy metal trash bag. It's everywhere. And I can use this. I can lay it out somewhere if it's wet. And I can put things on it. I don't get them all messed up as well. A good knife. Having a good fixed blade knife. We just have a Gerber. I think it's the LMF or one of their knives. For a basic, just solid knife, Gerber makes a good line of knives. I have some very expensive knives, but this is something that I love to use out in the field. I'm not worried about it getting messed up, and they just work. And it's got a sheath. I can put it on my hip. One big one. And you should have this in your car.
Yep.
You should have a map, a basic of your area or whatever area you're traveling in, and have a good map. GPS can go out. It will go out. I've had it to go out. I've had to use maps. And so it's good to kind of remember how to use a map.
How many times have you been in a very remote area? GPS goes out, you've got no cell phone signal, and for some reason your map gets turned off on your phone and won't reconnect.
Mm.
And I couldn't tell you how many times I've had that happen to me and need a map to be able to end up getting where I'm going.
Right.
And, had a buddy of mine a few years ago. He was going up to Virginia to go off-roading, and same thing happened to him. He lost his map, lost his Google Maps. It turned itself off or whatever. And he's driving down the road and he's trying to pull it back up and can't get it to come on. He doesn't have a map with him. He ends up driving 4.5 hours in the wrong direction, trying to get cell phone service so he can get his maps back up to figure out where he's at.
Yeah.
And ended up having to backtrack and lost an entire day of off-roading because his maps quit working.
Maps. Go to Travel Center, like truck stops. You can get them online. If you're a member of AAA, they'll even send you maps, or they have them available. There's a number of ways to get them. Gas stations sometimes will have maps. They don't have them as much as they used to because people are using their GPS. But for us guys that are more adventure minded and out there in the wild, a map is important.
Well, it's redundancy.
Dude,
we have redundancy with everything else in our bag. Why not redundancy to get where you're going?
Navigation.
Yep.
Guys, I was coming out of Charlotte, North Carolina, which is a very busy city. I mean, you know, it's the banking capital of the East Coast, except for New York. My maps went out there, coming out of Charlotte, going toward Rock Hill, and I was getting a complete blind. And on top of that, it would pop up every once in a while, but the roads had changed. They were doing construction. They hadn't been updated. I'm going to tell you what, if it hadn't been for a map, I still might be out there. Maybe. I would have found 85 sooner or later, but it would have been a 4-hour trip.
Right.
I keep some batteries. Listen, if you're CR123s, the one benefit for lithium-ion batteries is they don't corrode. Now, you can get lithium ions now that are AAA, AA, but if you get your standard alkaline batteries, they can corrode. And if they're in your electronic devices, they can corrode.
Yep.
I have a piece of night vision, a scope, that I left a stupid AA battery in it, and it corroded. It ruined it. And it was an expensive piece. Silky Saw, my favorite. I love the Silky Saw. This is another item that I am redundant. Everybody in the family has one. I have them in multiple places. This thing cuts like nobody's business. You know, there's nothing worse than getting an old saw out and it's like not cutting right. And you're like working your arm crazy. These work and they're awesome. And
I feel like you're trying to cut a tree down with a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, with just the saw blade.
Saw blade. Yeah.
But this thing, the teeth on this thing are incredible. I found out about the Silky Saw I took a survival class with Fieldcraft Survival a couple of years ago. And one of the instructors said, hey, try this. And I was like, holy crap, I love that thing. So since then, I've been on it. So it's just one of those fun things. And then a compass, you know, having a compass, you got your map. But again, these items can come in handy. I was stuck on the side of the road one time, ran out of gas, me being the super prepper that I am, ran out of gas. My brother-in-law came because we were out of town. He came to help me put gas in it. I had a Hummer and the safety nozzle, I couldn't get it to work. I ended up using a bandana, tying it around and pulling it to get it into, because there was a gap about that far. There are things that happen on a regular basis. Now, if you have brains and you keep your gas tank full, which you're supposed to, I mean, I always preach, you need at least half a tank of gas. And then here I am running out of gas. I'm just going to be real with you guys. I mean, it happens. But, my daughter's over there going, yeah, it happens. So there are things that help you survive, and it may not be the end of the world. It could just be a convenience. Sure, we were going to get a gas can that fit that thing, but this just helped us to do that. It's improvising to survive. And sometimes with a kit and you have some improvisable tools like paracord, like zip ties, like a bandana, it gives you a way to improvise.
Or funnel.
A funnel works really well too. See, that's what Robbie would have in here. So, again, these items, now I don't have any food items in here. I could throw some food in there, but the big thing I'm thinking is just items that I might need just on an everyday basis, that just, I have a problem. It's my personal SHTF situation, and we're putting that together. So, because it was funny, because when I was putting this together, even I was kind of thinking, is that really necessary? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, man, that's definitely something. Yep. And again, the biggest thing that led us to this was being in my vehicle, having my get home bag, but nobody else having one, and us having just to rely on that. Could we? Sure. We could probably get by with a lot of the things in there, but this gives us even more. And then when you add that bag in there, it just makes a complete setup.
Well, and not just a bag, but a good dry bag.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of dry bags to help keep moisture, help keep your stuff dry. If you've got, like, your socks, you've got some emergency, a backup pair of socks in there. The last thing that you want is for the stuff that you take out of there, you put it in a bag, and then your socks end up getting wet from, rain, or you're crossing a stream or whatever. And everything in your bag is basically ruined. You can't use it until you can dry it all out.
Right.
So,
right.
Keeping everything dry is really important. So with You got the dry box that seals up, keeps moisture out of it. You've got the dry bag in case you have to use your stuff in there as a get home bag. Keep your stuff dry.
And this is another MTM case guard. I found these at Palmetto State Armory. They had some of these smaller crates. And once I started using them, we use them for ammo cans. We do a lot with the MTM. It's a lot less weighty than your military ammo cans, which I use those as well. Yep. And I have some.
I found out about MTM 20 something years ago when I started reloading.
Yes.
They make all the little boxes that you can put your ammunition in for reloading, and great stuff. I've got boxes that are 25 plus years old, 30 years old that I've reloaded and used, and they still work. The plastic that they use is super strong. It's durable. It doesn't degrade over time like you see with a lot of your cheaper plastics and injection molded stuff. These guys make good stuff.
They do, and they're made in Plano, Texas, so it's U.S. made, and just great guy. Yeah, and I know these guys now because after doing so much, I've introduced myself, and we've actually done a couple of little things together. Yeah. Big fan of MTM, and there's a number of different sizes. You can check out the I think it's mtmcaseguard.com or something. But this is, and these are one of those items again that I love. I start using it. I just love it. Now you may have something completely different. And That's the one thing that's beautiful. That's right. Is that we can, and I find things sometimes and I go, oh, this is the bomb. This, where have you been all my life? Right. And so, it's like the Exotac stuff, and two guys, the one thing about Exotac and building your fire kit is they even have a little fire kit roll you can get, and then you can fill it out. And I use those. Actually, I've got a couple of those, and those just work great. Plus it has what I love about a fire kit. And this is, I'm going to go back to that just a second, because we do have them in the get home bag, is I know what's in here. I know this is a fire kit. Now, the tool roll that Exotac does is orange and gray, and it's cool, and it rolls up. So I can really identify it. Mm-hmm. But I keep all my tools in this bag. So if I need fire, I'm not digging through something, looking for some tool, lighter. Where's my ferro rod? Where's whatever? Where's my tinder? Tinder is very important as well. Being able to get that fire started. Yes, you can build a nest and you can do all that, but tinder will really put it on turbo.
This makes life easier.
It does. It makes life a lot easier.
And anything that you can do for yourself in a survival situation to make your life easier is, you'll thank yourself later.
Well, yeah. And two, it does, you're not expending all that energy and burning those calories. And so being smart, the one thing, and it was funny, I was down at Georgia Bushcraft. We were down with Casey, and we did the video we just did about the upcoming event in November, which I highly recommend. I believe it's November 17th. You can look at the video to check the dates, or go to GeorgiaBushcraft.com. But one thing he said is knowledge weighs nothing. It doesn't add any weight. And that's one thing about it is there are tools you need, but building up your knowledge and then putting it into practice, very important. Okay, got a few minutes here to talk about the get home bag, which we're not going to go through all the specifics because we have been through this 1,000 times. But find the bag, a good quality bag, one that's not going to rip, one that your shoulder straps are good and solid, one that you feel comfortable on your back. Because really, when you start putting the gear in here, this can be fairly heavy, and for all your survival gear. And again, I build out my get home bag on the rule of threes. Rule of threes. We already talked about it. So getting that together, putting the items in here. Yes, there are some things with food, with cooking. I have a small cooking pot. I have, like a butane lighter, or not butane lighter, but a small butane stove that I think it's MSR, little canister, and I can put my stove on there. I can cook. If I need to boil some water, I can, but I have water filtration in there. All the different items I need. Here's the thing, guys. Walking away from my vehicle is going to be a last ditch effort. I'm not necessarily going to just walk away because I've got supplies in there. But one thing about it what I like about having a get home bag rather than a bug out bag, I have a bug out bag at home. I keep my bug out bag at home. If I need to bug out, it's right there ready to go. But you're a glorified refugee. Even with a get home bag, you are a glorified refugee until you get home. And if you've ever read the Going Home series, which I highly recommend, Chris Weatherman does a phenomenal job and has continued to build that process. And plus, he's just a good guy. But the Going Home series is one thing that really kind of culminates some of these ideas to, having the supplies you need and the things you need. And the story is, and many of you have already read it, but, he starts out in Tallahassee, Florida for a business meeting, coming home to Gainesville, Florida, and actually an EMP hits, and he takes the items he has, packs them up, and walks out. And it's his travel home for the first book, and it's really good. So highly recommend it. Another book that's really important is The Modern Survival Guide for the Coming Economic Collapse. And there was a question earlier about what is something that really changed the way you think about prepping. And that honestly was probably a complete paradigm shift for me, because it was direct events that happened in Argentina and with an economic meltdown. One thing I want to mention, and I know I talk about precious metals, I'm big about it, but gold has hit, it was $2,667, I think it is, right before we came on here. 2000 was a record, just $2,000. We have gone historically, way beyond anything gold has ever. And what that means is your dollar is getting worth less and less.
Well, it's went up $150 in the last 7 days.
Yeah, per ounce.
We were about 2,500 last Tuesday, and I looked it up before I came over, and I was just curious where it was at, and we were like $2,507 or something like that. So it's went up almost $150 in the last 7 days.
Right. Yeah,
it's crazy.
And the thing is, guys, is the U.S. was based on the gold standard for a long time. And we've gone off that. We still have a gold reserve, but one thing that's funny is the central bank here in the U.S. is buying up gold. They're buying it up. China, Russia, Iran, these countries, the BRICS countries, are buying gold to back their currency. We're not. I mean, thank God the central bank is doing something, but who knows what they're going to do with it. But as far as
maybe they're selling it to BRICS.
Yeah, probably. You guys, and and we've talked about this. A lot of people say, well, I stock up on brass, steel, and copper. Me too, and I understand that, and you should. And again, prices are going up on ammunition. So go ahead, and if you're behind and you need some, do it now, because when the ammunition dries up, I don't want to be hammered about how I have all this ammunition and you don't. And the thing is it's important to have at least some self-defense ammunition. But get home bags, guys. You need to have one in your vehicle. Your family members need to have one, even if it's just an abbreviated bag with just some certain survival items. The one thing about prepping is it can be expensive. It can be very expensive. Don't go out to eat. Take a break. Of course, that's expensive. Good gosh. I mean, going out to eat's gotten out of hand. But go to the grocery store, you can see prices are going up. But having a get home bag is just going to be something that not only gives you peace of mind, but it could really save a family member's life. And so it's important to have that. Let's got anything else to add, or we want to grab some questions?
Yeah, let's grab a few questions.
Let's grab some questions. You guys put out some good questions. We're going to throw Sarah Mack under the bus.
Lone Star 4884 asks, question, does burying electronics in an underground cache protect from an EMP?
If it's, it should.
It would depend on the depth, how deep you bury it, and how close you are to the EMP. It disperses over miles. So the closer you are to the blast, the deeper it would have to be buried. The further from the blast you are, the more protected it is.
And I think too, as long as if you don't have it stored in a material that will conduct electricity, that's one of the big things, is that it attaches to, or it goes through items that will conduct electricity. So if you have something in there, if it is that way, insulate it with foam or whatever, or even Mylar. Mylar works really good. And so, or, listen, Faraday bags right now, you can get them on Amazon, you can get them on eBay, you can get them. And I have a number of different ones. In fact, when they did that emergency thing, with the phones, I stuck mine in a Faraday bag, and it didn't receive the signal.
Yeah. You can even use tinfoil as a emergency Faraday cage. Layers and layers of tinfoil around your phone or your electronic device. I think it's like 6 or 7 layers folded around your phone will completely block all signal from getting to your phone.
You can just, when you got your hat on, you can take that
That's
off.
right.
And you can make you
Just fold your phone up in your hat. But I thought that was interesting.
That's interesting.
With
That is
with
interesting.
the foil that you could block all cell phone signals to your phone with just tin foil.
Wow.
Neo Ragdolls ask, what are your suggestions for your preps stored in car where there is no shade for your vehicle and you're in a warmer climate?
Well, that is something to consider. Of course, sunlight does hurt, but that vehicle is insulated. Any of us that get in our car in the middle of summer know that it gets really hot.
Yep.
I think that what it's going to do is it's going to degrade the shelf life, but I think that's going to require maybe switching it out more often. But people go hiking and camping for days up in really in the desert areas or whatever, and so I think it's just really going to be rotation more often, but you don't want to not have it. One thing that, and Robbie has brought this up a number of times, is pepper spray in your car.
Yep.
Is to be careful because it can get too hot and it can make that thing.
That's right. It can pop for sure.
You don't want that.
And then you won't be in your car for a while.
But here's the thing for me. Like I have water in my vehicle. It gets really hot. As long as it's not in the direct sunlight and it doesn't start to grow algae, just pull it out and cool it off, if you need to use it. So there you go.
Mr. Lamfield says, question, would keeping heat sensitive items in an old cooler be better when left in the car?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that would be a good solution.
Yep. And we've talked about that before, using a old cooler in your car, you're basically hiding things in plain sight. Somebody looks in your vehicle, maybe they're looking to do a smash and grab. They see a 20-year-old Igloo cooler sitting in your car. They're like, nah, I'm not busting the window for that cooler.
Unless they thought there was beer in it.
Right. They're going to go on to the next car that's got the new Yeti in it that they bust the window. So I think an old cooler is one of those gray man things that will help protect your items, but also kind of give you the ability to store things in plain sight that people won't necessarily break in your vehicle to steal.
And you can cover it.
Right.
You can cover it.
Yep.
And then too, there's some more collapsible type coolers, some of the soft coolers. And to me, that would probably be a really good place.
The soft bags work really well.
Yeah,
we use those a lot.
That'd be good.
Lucky 13 driver says, question, do y'all use the PACE model when getting prepared, i.e. redundancy?
Absolutely.
Yes. PACE is a big deal. We did a video about that a while back, but what PACE is, if I can remember the acronym, is first you have your primary. That's like if you switch on the light. That's my primary. I'm going to use the light. And then you have emergency, which means, I have to have something backed up. And then we have a contingency. Let's see, I need to make sure I'm doing this right. So it's PA, alternative plan. So my light doesn't work, but I get my flashlight out. I still got technology. I pull out a lantern. And then there's contingency. And that means that if things start to go bad, what have I got to replace that? And then there's E for emergency. And that means that you're pretty much back to the Stone Age kind of situation without items that you have. And Robbie's getting radio calls, but yes, PACE is a wonderful way to set things up. And I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yep.
But yes, it's primary, alternative, contingency, and then emergency. And the closer you are to primary, the more first world we are. The more we're down to E is third world caveman stuff. So the more you have set back to protect and to take care of your primary for your alternate and your contingency, the more your first world, the more you have conveniences is the way I like to look at it.
The more comfortable you are.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Even in an emergency situation.
So you might say, well, you know what? I got my fire starter and I got my water filtration. I got this, or they don't even have water filtration in E. In emergency, you're boiling water that you're finding, or, you're just doing what from the beginning. I mean, just basic, you're using flint and steel in emergency.
Like a stray dog surviving on puddle water.
Yeah. Or you're using, bow drill method. Yep. Get yourself above that as much as possible. Get yourself above. You think about the worst basics, the worst, barely surviving. I got a stick and I'm stabbing fish with it. to, oh, I got a fishing kit. That's a big difference. And so pace is definitely something that I think right along with the rule of threes, pace is right there with it. It's just another way to organize. Thank you for that question.
David M says, question, how are you securing your case to your truck so in an accident it isn't a projectile?
There's a number of different ways to do that. And some of them are cables, locking cables. And if I have a firearm, especially if I have a long gun in my vehicle, I like to have it secured with some kind of locking cable, and I can lock it to some frame point in the car. That way, yes, somebody can come with a big pair of bolt cutters and they can cut it. But how many people are walking around with big old pair of bolt cutters? I mean, it just lessens your chance. There is people can do whatever. They can get into whatever, just like your safe at home. They can go to the side of the safe and take a circular saw and run right through that thing. But it buys you time, and two, they may not be have the equipment to be able to do what they do.
We use mesh netting in the back of our vehicles to help secure items. So that way, if you're going to roll over it, it contains everything and it doesn't become a projectile. But I've used the mesh netting for years in the back of our vehicles.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
Brad Schmidt asks, question, how do I adapt to having kids in SHTF at home and on the road? What prep should I make for them? And then a similar question was Gamer54541 says, I have 2 kids and I'm at a loss of what to pack for them.
Okay, this is important because we were at Disney World one time when the kids were small, and we're sitting here and there's this big open area. The kids are over on the other side playing, just doing something, and we're just sitting there hanging out. All of a sudden, the door to whatever show was going on opened, and then there was a sea of people, and the kids just disappeared. Anytime you might be in the woods, you might be in the street, you might be wherever you might be. If you're on foot and you're walking, is for you to get separated from your family. It can happen. I mean, even you separated from your wife or whatever, you can get separated. So with kids, what I try to, in fact, we did a video about bugging out for kids or kid survival items, what they can handle. And of course, the first thing is having them a little jacket, having them a little whistle in their bag. If they're up, having some water, just having some snacks, having some things for them, even a heavy meal trash bag they can wrap around. Just some basic things that they're able to utilize.
Age appropriate items.
Yes. When they get a little bit older, they get to be 12. Well, they have a pocket knife and they have a little lighter or a little fire kit where they can actually start a fire if you've taken them out and taught them. And some kids are younger, can do that. Some kids a little bit older. So, like Robbie said, are they responsible enough to handle those things? And you can make it fun. You can go out, you can do things, building nice fires.
Yeah, that's right.
Just like Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts, that's what they do. They start out young and they train them to really survive. And so there are things, again, a little rain jacket. Just some basic things that they can use. But I do have a couple of videos. Well, it's a video about kids and packing some things according to their age. But they need the chance to survive. And so if they get separated, and heaven forbid, you want them to have more of a chance to survive. And if it's just a few things, at least until you can get to them. Also, one important thing with your kids is have photos. Current, not on your phone, have some current photos of your kids and your family for that matter. Current photos, maybe have a group family photo that you've taken, get it printed, which is something we don't do that much, just like we used to, and have them with each of your bags. That way, when this kid shows up at some kind of center or a ranger finds them or whatever, they say, hey, this is my dad, my mom. And then you're going to be able to locate them. Otherwise, they're not going to know who to look for. Yep. And in a SHTF situation where things are crazy, you could have like refugee centers or places where people are gathering. You're going to want to have a way to be able to identify someone where there's hundreds of people or whatever. So very important. Get those photos. Get just a few items together. Anything to add to that? I just kept running my mouth.
No.
Okay, good. All right, it's 1 o'clock. Time to end things. Guys, we could go on for another hour. In fact, Robbie and I will. But we could go on for another hour. But guys, just having, again, your car, your vehicle, something you're in all the time. So having your basic emergency tools, which pretty much everyone, at least they go, I should have done that. One additional item I do want to add is just having a blanket in your car.
Mhm.
Just having a blanket. I've had a number of people that have told me that they got stranded in the middle of a blizzard or whatever. Their car was sitting there and they had a blanket and they were able to just to wrap up in that blanket. So blankets are also a part that you need to have. But go with your basic emergency stuff. Make sure you have a trauma kit, whether it's something like this or even a roll like this. If some people ask again, this is amp3.net. And he has a lot of great setups because he is an emergency room doctor, and this is so well thought out. Also, have your survival kit, your survival setup box. Again, it's redundant to your get home bag. And if you have 2 or 3 people in the car, this is going to be very important. The other part is I can get into this instead of getting into my get home bag and pulling stuff out and not replacing it. So redundant, but good. And then, of course, your get home bag. Every car in our family has a get home bag. And if I look in their car and they don't, well, then I get onto them and I make sure it's in there because you need to have that. All right, guys. Well, that was a full day. Thanks for all the great questions. I hope this helped you, gave you some ideas. You set it up however you feel like you need to set it up. This is the way to do it. This is just the way that I do it and that Robbie does it. And so, but it gets you to thinking. And again, improvise to survive. So having some things that you can improvise just helps it to go a lot longer. Again, a big thank you to Robbie Wheaton for being here. Wheaton Arms, check that out. He does one of the best Glock aftermarket triggers, period, on the market. The Glock barrels are awesome. He does different barrel sizes, threaded barrels, things like that, and other parts. Also, the Robbie Wheaton YouTube channel.
Yes, sir.
Link down below in the description. And just really appreciate Robbie for being here. And also, Sarah Mack, we want to give her a big thank you for monitoring the questions and getting them and delivering them to us. So be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.